Welcome to a Vurbmoto podcast. This is the Vurbmoto Power Hour with your host, Brad Gebhart and Zach Heron. Zach, how's it going?
How's it going, man? Another great weekend of racing. A little different conditions, but I'm excited to go over it and talk about what's going on in the moto world.
Things are a little bit sloppy, things are a little bit soggy, but we are here to talk about it amongst other things. Well, and let everybody know that Gypsy 500 is happening. It's coming up very soon. In fact, March 9th, we descend upon Mesquite MX. Beauty of that particular facility, it is basically on the backside of a golf course. It's basically in the desert. So when they want to expand some things, all they have to do is just break through the wall, essentially, and then we've just got a playground of old school moto that they like to call the off-road loop. They've got the grassroots off-road series. I myself am going to be part of a team that has not been named yet to compete against Jace McAlpine and the rest of the Verb crew at the Gypsy 500. Why is it a 500? Because it's 500 minutes of racing. Will I be racing 500 minutes? Probably, because as far as I know, I keep getting taken off of different Verb teams that have been like formed and then unformed. So I'll probably be completely by myself for that event. That's going on March 9th. So check that out. And honestly, like get your team in now because they're over halfway full. And Zach, can you let me know about anything else we got going on?
Dude, you talk about Mesquite MX. It just seems to be where it's at. There's a reason Ken Roczen's training out there. It seems like everybody who's anybody wants to be hanging out at Mesquite. But yeah, just about a month after that, when you get wrapped up, your blisters will finally probably be callousing over from the Gypsy 500. We got World Mini. It's back, it's bigger, and it's better than ever. And I'm not just talking about the trophies, the competition. Anybody and everybody's going to be there. And I believe signups already open, correct?
Yeah, sign up is open. 30 minutes outside of St. George, right in the town of Mesquite there. You'll drive through a golf course and then you will descend upon what can only be described as one of the most beautiful, picturesque motocross tracks that I've had the pleasure to circulate. And I was circulating it quite slowly, so I really got a good view of everything. But yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I was there last year for World Mini, which we brought it back last year. We're doing it again this year. And yeah, I was also there for their Thanksgiving race. And let me tell you, those guys put on a hell of an event. When they say sight laps are at 7:30, sight laps are at 7:30 on the dot. And yeah, it's just one moto after another. The team over there, they've got the Delta Rabbits that they call them. That's the track crew that kind of like make sure that everything is going like a Swiss watch. And yeah, that's what's necessary because 4 straight days of events, whether it's practice and then motos after motos after motos. And you as well as I know, growing up, it was World Mini. Like on the West Coast, you wanted to hit up World Mini. Like Trey Kennard, Justin Barsha, all the heavies would pack all their stuff from up east and head out west and test their metal at World Mini. They're gonna do so again. Speed MX.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, just hearing what you've talked about it, I haven't had the pleasure of going out there. There's a reason I'm talking about sneaking into suitcases, jumping on planes, figuring out any way I can out there. As a rider, we talk about the track. It's awesome, sick, gnarly, inter-adjective here, but on the backside of things, the way the entire facilities run as well, that's what I really like to hear about,
Yeah,
man. Like you said, it runs like a Swiss watch. They've got an entire crew out there dedicated to making sure that the riders have the best time possible. They're as safe as possible, and so that gives me a lot of confidence to talk about how awesome it's going to be. And like I said, I'm finding a way out there. I've been practicing my hitchhiking. It's going to happen. I'm going to make it happen one way or another.
hey, gas, grass, or ass, man. No one rides for free. Looking forward to it. And yeah, they have a full functioning vet track. For I'm sure that's going to be available on the practice day. And then the Stasic track is going to be hopping the entire time. You know, the Verb crew is out there. We got the Stasics, and there'll be kids just like draining those batteries. Remind me to send Stasic an extra email and maybe send like a couple extra batteries our way to keep kids because you and I were there for Verbadilla. How many times did we get asked if the Stasics were ready to go?
I put it like this: if I had a dollar for every time I was asked, I wouldn't have to be working with Vurbmoto anymore because I could probably own an entire series. Yeah, if you email them, ask them for a couple dozen, not just a
Yeah,
couple. I'm
just
telling you
keep
what.
those things on the charge.
I mean, those kids probably slept for the next 3 days straight because I don't think they stopped riding. They go off the track onto the Stasics, right back onto the track. It's a great time for sure.
Yes, those little electric engines are still going in my ears when I try and go to sleep at night. I hear the, "Ooh." But Okay, let's go straight into some sight laps. Early portion of the podcast, early portion of the day, you hit some sight laps. Something that sort of like popped out to us, caught our eye throughout the last week. And honestly, like I'll be completely just shameless on this one. I love myself some Fox gear, and it's their 50-year anniversary. They're coming out with stuff all day long, and it's funny because Ryan Hughes kind of spilled the beans because he's working with Austin Faulkner, as well as he's doing a little bit of work with Levi Kitchen. He posts something, I think it was on a Wednesday, and Levi's got these black and yellow boots on, and I'm like, those look different. Took a screenshot, send that over to Austin Hoover at Fox. I'm like, what's this all about? He's like, damn, boot breaking, always got kind of like spilling the beans. That gear was absolutely epic. It's a crying shame that it was everything was essentially brown, because yeah, it wasn't looking too hot by the end of it. But that was throwback gear, back 50 years from the beginning of Fox. It was good looking stuff. For those who don't know, Fox essentially started making gear because, of course, they were a shock company, and there's only so far that a little logo on the side of a shock will get you. So they started making gear, and then they started getting more requests for the gear than they had the shocks, which is kind of a good problem to have. So they kind of split the companies, and they've been crushing it on the gear side of things since the beginning. So yeah, that black and yellow stuff, that's what was stuck out to me. What about you?
Man, and I liked the photo shoot with Kenny and
Look
Levi and
good.
everybody. I agree. I mean, it looked fantastic about midway through the start, and then it was
Yep.
ruined the rest of the race.
Yep.
So it was a crying shame. It was a bad weekend to break out some gear, but the stuff looked awesome.
You wanted
And
to
I
get
like
yourself
the
a hands on that orange hoodie that they had that was spinning around though. That like
yeah.
if you're finding yourself in the backwoods, I think blaze orange is a good color for you. And yeah, that's stylish if I don't say so myself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it. I really enjoyed it, and I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of it. But talking about the woods, that's my site lap as well. So we've got a lot of team announcements going on for the
Yes.
GNCC season, getting ready to start next month. And former Supercross qualifier, I believe Loretta Lynn's champion multiple time,
Gotta be.
Jordan Jarvis has moved over to the woods, and that was a pretty big shock for me. She's joined the Ampro Yamaha team, and I think she's gonna surprise a lot of people. Jordan, we both got to catch up with her at Loretta Lynn's last year and kind of talk about where she's at in her career and what's going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's she didn't tell me at least anything about that at Loretta, so curious to find out when the decision was made. But exciting stuff not only for Jordan and the Ampro Yamaha team, but for the WXC class in GNCC as well. Rachel Archer, the defending champion, moving over to Stu Baylor's team on the green machine. And so I'm excited to see where Jordan stacks up and how she's able to adjust to the 3 hour race time. But no doubt she's got the speed.
No doubt. Yeah. It looks like she was looking to throw down some motos with Sean Hackley when she was there. Maybe I don't know if the two of them ended up working together on some training side of things, but either way, yeah, she's going to be putting her best foot forward in the woods this coming year, and that'll be pretty entertaining. But on like staying on the women's side of things, like there's some exciting things on the WMX side of things as well. I haven't read through all of the press releases and what's going on with that, but it sounds like a much more bolstered sort of program for some women's racing coming up.
Yeah, so kind of in the same boat as you. I saw the announcement, and if I read correctly, I believe the first round is going to start at the Ricky Carmichael Daytona Supercross,
Okay.
like the amateur day, and it's an 8 round series, I believe, that's spread out throughout the years, or throughout the year. But no, absolutely, just an exciting thing, and really glad to see that it's a bigger opportunity for our female racers out there. I mean, that was one of the most entertaining classes at Loretta's this previous year. I mean, it just seems like more and more. I know even on the off-road side of things, it blows my mind to see how many girls we've got active racing, and they are not only competing against each other, but I mean, they're putting it to the boys as well. And so exciting stuff there for the female side of the sport, and excited to see that grow as well.
Yeah, for certainly. Yeah, like young ladies like Lachlan Turner. You've got Sophia Phelps, as well as um, who's the young lady out of Texas there? 21 on the
Put me on the
Cali.
spot. I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Perhaps cut this part out, perhaps leave it in. Either way, it's time to go to the verb line. A little bit of Q&A for you. Let's go straight into some questions that were left to us. We picked three of the best ones, although anyone can email me, Brad at vurbmoto.com, with your questions for next week. But Eric Jefferson from Casa Grande, Arizona. I got a flat tire there one time. For Zach, who is the most fun interview from this last past season at GNCC, and who is the most difficult? Good question.
Ooh, that is a good question. When it comes to interviews, I'm gonna be honest. Stu Baylor is probably one of the most.
Makes it easy on you.
Yeah, he's emotional, he's personable. You relate to him in a way. And so I'd have to say Stu. And quite honestly, I think probably the most fun interviews were not at the most fun times. Because I mean, there's a little bit of a, it's not a rush, but it's a part of the job. When things go wrong, you really kind of see some riders' characters, and a lot of people give Stu some slack or some flack about not being very cool-headed and able to control himself. But I'll give credit where it's due. Anytime I walked over, I'd hold the microphone up and be like, hey man, they want a word with you. Give me a second. He'd pull himself together, and he was nothing but a class act. He was honest. You saw the emotion. But yeah, Stu's definitely probably the best. As far as the least, going back to the timing, there's been times where a rider. I to put it like this. I think the worst interview I had was with a rider that decided not to do the interview. And I don't want to put him on blast because it was a true unfortunate situation. But I think it's when you have to go up to a rider, they don't want to do it, and the rider was like, I just can't. And they were teary eyed, and I understood where they were at, and I had enough respect for him to be like, okay, fair enough. But yeah, I without a doubt, I'd say Stu's probably the most fun to interview.
Certainly, he who will not be named. I have asked a rider about arm pump back in 2017. They looked at me dead in the eye and just retreated back into the truck, and I think that was the end of that conversation. We buried the hatchet since then, but yeah, I won't out that person right now. But they were dealing with some arm pump early in 2017. You could probably figure out who it was. David Larson from that's kind of your end of town, Atlanta, Georgia. So that's not too far from where you're at. For Brad, whose career was most negatively affected by switching to four strokes? And actually, this is an interesting question, because obviously four strokes was such a boon for motocross, and people loved them. They added a lot, like some longevity to some careers that maybe wouldn't have been that way, or some guys who just they gravitated the machines super well. I think of a guy like Tim Ferry. I think his like the backside of this question, who was positively affected. Tim Ferry, same thing with Nate Ramsey. If you remember Nate Ramsey, he was on a pro circuit bike for a very short period of time. He basically introduced the KTM 250F. The year after that, he basically introduced the Honda 250F. He basically did three back-to-back, essentially like developments with three different manufacturers. So if you're looking to develop a 250F in the mid 2000s, more than likely Nate Ramsey was in your contact list. That's someone who was positively affected. Negatively affected, I might get some pushback on this one. James Stewart.
Oh, I do think that's going to be a split decision right there. But okay, explain a little further because
Okay,
I feel like
here's
I
where I'm
understand
going
where
with
you're
this.
coming
Because
from.
obviously, James, he got a perfect season on a four stroke. He was obviously extremely talented and was able to have a lot of success on four strokes. If you look at the early portion of his career, though, when he was on two strokes, aside from, I guess, 2005, where his win percentage wouldn't have been very high because he only won, I believe, three races out of the seven supercrosses that he raced. So decent win percentage in supercross, won a grand total of 0 nationals on a two stroke on 250. Of course, that's in the 450 class. We called it the 250 class back then because that's the 252 strokes we used to race. But James had such an advantage. And when everybody else started to have that easy button, I think things started to sort of, they got closer to him. And by that same token, because he was also able to enjoy that same easy button, that's when things started to really get out of hand with James as far as how much he was willing to send it. That like the two stroke was almost like a built-in governor that like James, you can only go this fast. Like you can still push the bike to its absolute limit, but I guess like the sort of the ceiling on that was a little bit lower than it was with the four strokes. And honestly, like he sort of like lived throughout the early development of those four strokes which like the carburation, like the design of the geometry of the frames, none of that was perfect. There was a lot of teething problems with the early four strokes that James had to deal with. And that's why I would say him, as well as Chad Reed, were two guys that were negatively affected by switching to two strokes. Had they stayed on two strokes throughout the entire 2000s, even into the 2010s, I think those both guys would have more championships.
Interesting point. Yeah, I mean, I think I think you hit the nail on the head as far as the bike was only going to go so fast. Like you hear oftentimes when people talk about James on a 125, like they say, I don't think it is physically possible for a 125 to go faster than that.
Mhm.
And I think there's a point to that where it's like at some point the bikes, and we've heard about that as the evolution, even as four strokes continue to evolve today. We talk about the speeds, and now going into the electric world, talking about whether or not more power is a good thing. But yeah, it'd definitely be interesting. I mean, I think with as much success as he has on a four stroke, it wouldn't be hard for people to argue against it. But I think I understand where you're coming from. I think there's some validity to that.
I also just think that like the rest of the competition became that much closer as far as being able to like take some swings at them versus on two strokes it was kind of a non-starter. Like even the fact that like in 2004 on at that time would be considered a like inferior KX 125, he goes out there against a bunch of four strokes and just crushes them all. Like that was a that was an impressive year. He won all but one moto outdoors. I didn't know actually. I was looking at some stats last year or last night. Ricky Carmichael, like from 2002 through like 2005, I think he lost like a grand total of like four nationals. Like it,
I put it like this. I've
he
said it
lost
before.
two nationals in '03, and I think he lost two nationals in '05, and I think that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've said it before. I think, and I was pretty young in that era, but
Mhm.
it's like I don't think people appreciate how damn good Ricky was. Like it's just you go back and that's my thing is like whenever I'm running at the gym or whatever, I like to put on old races. And
Mhm.
so I've gone through like the entire '04 season.
Mhm.
It's it just it blows my mind. And quite honestly, like you look at Jet now and you go back and you look at that and you're like, it's similar, but it's so different. Like the way he rides is just WFO the entire time. It's truly remarkable. And I think they know a lot of people know him as a broadcaster now and they
Mhm.
know a different side of him. And it's
Yeah,
like, man, that dude he wasn't just fast, he was gnarly. Like
he's mean about it. He took your
yes,
lunch money. Like
yes.
yeah, like Jet sort of like he's style, he's finesse, he's beautiful on a motorcycle. And not to say Ricky Carmichael wasn't beautiful on the motorcycle, to it like it was just a completely different flavor. Like
Yep.
if like Ricky Carmichael was like black coffee. Like
Yep.
just in your face. Like you're gonna lead a couple laps? I don't think so. See ya
Yep.
later. Yeah, he would have lost back-to-back races in it would have been uh Unadilla and then Washougal in '03. And
K-Dub's
then I think
Candyland.
sorry?
K-Dub's Candyland.
Yes, sir. Yeah, just and that Unadilla breeze keeps pushing them on. And then the fall and then the other ones that he lost in '05. Oh, I can't remember. Like I think did he crashed in one of the races at Southwick, but I think he still won that national. So tough to remember the exact which ones it was, but I think he only lost two nationals in '05. And that like it's crazy to think of like just how dominant he truly was. We're getting off topic. Last question in this is another question for you from Chris Riesenberg from Race Tech. That's awesome. What's up, Checkers? All the way from Minnesota. Um, for Zach, if you could choose one motocross training facility to do all your training for your illustrious Loretta Lynn's comeback when you not only race, not only announce, but also get on the microphone and sing your songs, where would you be training?
Well, I have been thinking about that plus 30 BC class. It's a couple years away.
Okay.
And if I start now, there's a chance in 4 years I might be ready. But no, I'm actually so I'm kind of just about the same distance between south of the border, and Club MX, which would probably be the two closest to me. Jimmy Weiner training facility is also over on the coast. But I'll be honest, man, I think it's hard to argue against Club MX. I've been there and rode their practice facility a couple of times, but I've also gotten to go to their open houses and go to just walk through the facility. Not to mention their professional effort now, I think is worth noting. But getting to see a lot of their riders come to the NCMX series that I announced here in North Carolina, it's pretty remarkable to see the riders, not only the riders that show up to that place to train from around the world and around the country, but some of the riders that I know personally that have gone and have completely changed who they are as a rider, not only just on the track, but the way they go about fitness, the way they go about nutrition. They got some good stuff going on over there. So it's not too far from me. I'm not a big sand guy, and so I need just to put in some time on that sand track. It's brutal. And yeah, I think the proof's in the pudding for what they can do down there. So it'd be Club MX.
Certainly, yeah. No, it's always amazing to me the amount of progression that can be achieved by going to one of these facilities. Like the amount of riding. I meet kids they're crazy fast. Like I was talking to Dawson Cobb down at the Shoals, and I'm like I think he's 16 years old, and I'm like he's like decent B rider. Like, I think he can latch on to like the like Avery Longs of the world and show him a wheel here and there. And like Avery's going to go race some Supercross and outdoor nationals in about a year here. So like Dawson has some serious skills in his own right. And I asked him like, how long you been racing? He's like, oh, 6 years. Like 6 years. Like so you only started doing this 10 like you're like 10 years old. You're 16 now. Like the kid's faster in 6 years than I the amount of speed that I've sort of like gathered for myself over the last 20. And obviously, like I don't focus on it the way those guys do, but like it's just amazing to see how much speed these guys can generate and just like the skill level that they can achieve under a very short period of time, just because you have so much focused training. Let's move on to the race that was this last weekend. It's all a blur because it was all muddy to begin with. The blur was also the fact that there's a lot of rain on the cameras because it pissed down rain the entire time in a segment we're calling Race Day at a Glance, because we're not going to comb through all of the results and the like a full race review. If you want one of those, I'm sure you've probably already listened to Steve Mathis and those guys break that down. But let's talk about the race that was San Francisco Supercross. It was a mutter. We haven't had one in a while. Talking about the 250 class, what jumped off the page of you?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's Forrest Gump out there. It started raining. I mean, dude, it was upside down, sideways rain. I said the same thing. I think it was Randy Richardson that tweeted out that the cameras needed a tear off system
They
because
do.
it was just, it was, that's pretty gnarly. I mean, I've been, and I feel like I am qualified to talk on this, not only
Yes.
between
In the
Loretta's
last summer
last
you
year,
had, yes.
but
You have a
just
prerequisite.
yeah, this past 2023 GNCC season, I have seen rain and mud on a level that I didn't think was even possible to ride through. And you know, I know that you start the day early. You take a look at the qualifying and the way they ended up pushing the start and then chopping that second set. As far as practice goes, I understand what they were doing as far as trying to preserve the track. I agree that it was a bummer, but I think somebody made a good point. I can't remember who it was, but they said, you know, who do you even think would really go out there and try to qualify at that point, like in the second round? I think
Yeah.
those guys that didn't make the cut, Justin Hill, a couple other ones that I think caught some people by surprise. But yeah, when it comes down to it, there's so many questions that go into the race just because there's not rhyme or reason as to why things happen. There's so many different whether it's how tacky the dirt is coming together with people. I mean, you take a look at even Barsha off that LCQ start with the one-handed bull riding, like it's terrifying. And I mean, you know, what the only thing that's probably scarier than letting go of the motorcycle with one hand is going full speed on the motorcycle when you can't see anything. Like that's terrifying. And
What did
so,
you think of Carson Mumford going two goggles? He went
hey,
double goggle.
points for creativity, right? I mean,
Is it
You
because
know,
he was wearing the 41? Like it's because that like Trey Kennard's thing was 2 goggles. He's 41. Like it was like an homage.
you think he even knows that? You
No,
think
there's no way.
somebody had to tell
Not,
him
not
that?
there's not
Probably.
a yeah, snowball's chance
Yeah,
in
not a
hell.
chance.
Um, what'd you think of the Club MX boys? They put 2 bikes in the top four or top five or top four, obviously. Um, Marchbanks, Utah natives, takes the podium away from Nicoletti. Like for that reason, now I hope that Nicoletti somehow gets one this year because that sucks for him. But yeah, Club MX taking care of business.
Yeah, like I said, there's a reason the Zach Heron comeback is going to be training down in Chesterfield, South Carolina, and that speaks to it right there. But I no, all kidding aside, I don't think it's any secret that those guys have been putting in a ton of work. And I think you take a look at the last couple of years, the results don't surprise anybody, but the conditions, man, they put themselves in a great spot. You talk about the Nicoletti getting caught up when Cole fell over, even though it was a couple of seconds. I you and I both know seconds feel like years in a
Oh,
situation like that. And
he was inventing swears in that moment.
oh,
What
I
the
mean, yeah, the stringing that I'm sure Filthy was able to come up with in the moment was probably all time. And I'm surprised he had enough of a voice to be able to do an interview afterwards because but I can't say for fact. We'll have to get record from one or the other whether or not that was said, but he looked rather in control at the moment. But no, it's funny, say what you will. Bad news, Phil. I mean, it is just a bummer. I've got a Phil Nicoletti jersey back from the 1110 mods day.
Oof,
Oh yeah, that's one of my
frame that
personal.
bitch. Why is that not
Yeah,
behind you?
that's that, dude. I've got to get some boxes going. I got a couple of jerseys, man. It's
Yeah, I gotta get a shadow box. My
yeah,
my
yeah,
hanger's not quite cutting it.
yeah. No, I'm scared to put thumbtacks in these walls. I might bring the whole wall down. So,
Fair enough.
but no, absolutely. It's great for them both, and I think Phil was excited for Garrett. That is one thing that's pretty cool about that team is the camaraderie between them. They all really truly do seem to support one another and give each other grief back and forth. And so I think Phil's at a point in his career where he clearly was trying to go for it and he wanted it as much as he could. But I think he is starting to see a bigger picture, and I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a career in training and becoming more involved with Club MX on the backside of things. But yeah, all in all, you got to give props where it's due. They survived, which is more than half of the battle in those conditions, and then they were basically left to do battle with one another. So yeah, that was awesome for both of them.
Club MX camp counselor Philip Nicoletti, like that, just raising hell for the rest of his days down in Carolina. That would be unbelievable. Can't get out of the 250 class without talking about smoking Joe Shimoda because that bike was smoking. Um, I felt bad. Honestly, I feel for the kid because like you put so much work and so much effort into preparing for this season. Like everyone around you saying, "This is your year, man. You got this." Blah 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 blah. Like you got guys, people like rightfully so blowing smoke up his ass because he looks good, and like it was like a lot like the Lawrences are out of the class, so you've got that much more of an opportunity to go win some races. And he's got a fourth and a 22nd. He gets 0 points for this last weekend because he didn't complete a lap. And I also felt bad for him. He's trying to get the bike off the track, and he's actually more in the way than anything. Like a couple laps in there, that was a bummer. Yeah, just like him and D Francisco, not able to finish the race. Both their bikes get let go. I don't know if it's because they're just both red bikes, but yeah, that's what I noticed.
Yeah, it was a bummer for both of them, especially like Ryder had a really good showing early in the day too. And
Yeah,
so I think he's been like I think we've both said he's been one to watch for this year, and I expect big things on the new team. But for Joe, yeah, and it's one of those deals where it's out of his control. I mean, it is a bummer truly, and I know he's upset about it, but I think he's enough of a champ, and he's got enough of a good group around him to where they're going to be able to come up with their chin up and come out swinging. I really am interested to see. Put it like this: I'm gonna put him on the podium. He's in my picks for the podium next week for the next race. I'll put it like that.
he is for me as well, and we'll get to the predictions after we talk about the 450 class. Where if you told me after 2 rounds that Christian Craig was currently sitting 18th in points with a total of 10 points on the year. I would have assumed that something's gone like horrifically wrong. And I guess that's the case. A DNF and a 14th in a hellacious mutter. I don't think that Christian is a like over the top mud guy, but I don't think that even was what was required this last weekend. Just if things don't go your way, you're gonna be on the back. You're gonna be on the outside looking in. In fact, even Jet Lawrence himself, the heir apparent to the throne of all things motocross, he managed a ninth. Yeah, like not only a tough A1, but also like just a tough second round for Christian. What are your thoughts on a kid who yeah, him and Malcolm 17th and 18th in points, 11th and 10 points respectively. That's a tough pill to swallow for the Husky guys.
Well, and that's exactly what I was about to say was obviously the bad luck for Christian is there, but it seems like that entire Husky team is on the 450 side at least really having some bad luck. That crash from Malcolm could have been much worse. Shout out to
You mean the
Cincerello.
qualifying one?
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
if you
that was
saw.
bad.
Yeah, that was a big one. And I mean, I believe he got rather lucky from the way it looked like the bike landed. But that was one of those ones where it had the potential to really cause some damage. And so I was glad to see that he was able to get up and keep going after that. But yeah, I mean, the thing that sucks about the Husky situation is it doesn't really seem like there's a rhyme or reason. Like there's not a mechanical, there's not, a ton of specific blame that can be pointed out. So I don't know what it is. I did see some posts. I don't know if it was Page or whoever, but I know Christian was in last at one point, and it looked like he was gaining position. So
14th. Like
yeah,
he must have made some like
I think you're going to try to keep your head held high. I don't think it's any secret that he's not necessarily the biggest mutter. Um, but yeah, it's not only a tough just because of the results, but it's tough. Like that's when you really get the gut check as far as the drive for the full season. It's one thing if you're in a good spot early on and then midpoint through the season you have a couple of bad results and it's like, hey, all right, we're not out of this yet. But when you start, especially 2 rounds in, deep down in the trenches where it's not looking pretty, it's a character check for sure. And I mean, so yeah, I think this next round is going to be big for them. I think they both need to kind of have a regroup and they need to have a round to prove to themselves, hey, all right, I am able to do this. Like I do belong up here. And so yeah, we'll see whether or not they're able to turn around at round 3.
certainly, yeah, and it'll be both those guys got some tough sledding to do. But gotta give you hats off to Chase Sexton. Led wire to wire, led every like amazingly only 12 laps in the whole race. He wasn't credited with the whole shot, but he did lead the first lap and all of them. In fact, that's the case for every main event so far. All 4 main events, wire to wire winners, which is pretty wild to think of. We have to get some diversity at the front of the pack soon, but yeah, great ride from Sexton, great ride from Tomac, and shout out to Aaron Kane from Oakley. He had mentioned not only did his guys finish both motos, but their roll offs were still working at the end of those races. So yeah, my boy from Oakley taking care of business, Aaron Kane.
Yeah, Aaron, you got the job done and got it done right. That's for sure. I mean, in those conditions, it's crucial, and we saw that. We saw when it went right for people. We saw what happened when it didn't go right for people. And so, a big shout out to all of the goggle guys in general, because I mean, between the chaos of preparing for it, I can only imagine what Mumford's goggle guy was having to do. He's double packing goggles. Like
Yeah,
double
yeah.
stacked with tear. I don't know how that works. I'd be curious to see how he
Well, the
prepped them.
first one is a tear off, so I assume you put no tear offs on the one that you plan on tearing off.
I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's pretty cool. Like, no, let's put a $20 stack of laminated tear offs on
Hey
a pair
man,
of goggles that are just going
maybe
to
he
end up
puts
on
a
the side.
first, but in those conditions, you got to think he's prepared. Like he knows he's going to be reaching for it the second it's done. So it's like I would maybe put a set of tear offs on the first set, take them off, then roll offs. Who knows, man? There's a reason I don't do
I
guys.
I I'll admit I can't get on board with the 2 goggle setup like that. you're looking through a lot of questionable, like you're already starting off with questionable vision, and then if you don't get a good jump, like you might as well just like stop on the start straight, toss those, and just continue on about your day. Because yeah, it's an absolute quagmire out there. So Sexton is now your points leader. Congratulations to him, your former champion. You'll have the red plate coming back to what will undoubtedly be a dry Supercross in San Diego. I checked the forecast just last night. Sunny and 75 all week in San Diego. In fact, I believe that their basically average weather is just like Celsius is 18 degrees, but for you guys, it's about 75 degrees and absolutely gorgeous. Getting back to some normal racing. Now, what did I ask you about this? Is watching a mud race, and like you had ended up having to watch it today. So like you already knew what was going on, and you had to sit through a 3 hour broadcast. Of course, you probably skipped through some stuff, but like mud races are not always great racing. But this one was actually entertaining. I was surprised.
Yeah, I think the thing that I have really learned, I guess, over this last year, and even not even so much GNCC. Let's talk just Loretta's.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when the rain is falling, it gets to a certain point to where it's like, okay, it is soaking wet. It's not really going to change at all.
Yeah.
Like everything is slosh. You're kind of pushing through it, and you're more point and shoot riding style. And the problems really start turning to survival when it stops raining. And obviously
Things
there
get
was a
backed up.
survival effort to that. But I think the thing that in a lot of ways saved the race was the fact that it was raining the entire time. It stayed extremely sloppy, and the riders were able to keep that speed up. Whereas we've seen in the past when it's rained early in the day and then it lets off for the night show, or it's been a week leading up of really soft soil, it starts to get to the point where the ruts start to hold their shape. Riders have got the feet off the pegs. Things are sticking to everything. And it becomes much more about let me just tiptoe around the track rather than, hey, I can blow through these ruts if I just hold it wide open. I mean, take RJ Hampshire. My man was absolutely sending it. Sometimes he made it to the landing.
Yeah.
Sometimes he made it kind of
He
to
didn't
the
get the mailing address 100% a couple of times when he was sitting send, but
dude. Yeah, hey, can't say the guy does not go for it. But
yeah, no,
yeah,
he
I
was
think
sending off you up texts at 2 o'clock in the morning and
yeah.
wherever those
It,
end up.
it was absolute Hail Mary. But yeah, I think that's in a lot of ways what saved it. But the muddy, I think the thing that sucks is you don't really know who's who. The riding styles are so unpredictable in those conditions that
How about
it doesn't,
Prado though?
dude, right? Right?
The heat
He
race? Are you kidding
was
me?
he was on another one. It was
The Euros were heat race heroes. You got Ferrandis and like the my bingo card didn't have Jorge Prado having a 450 heat race win before Jet Lawrence.
And it's funny because I had seen something on Twitter before where they were like, Prado has got to be like shitting his pants seeing these guys still hitting the jumps in this condition. And then he comes out and just lays the wood to him. And I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, turns out I don't think Prado was shitting his pants at all. Prado
No,
was game
no,
on.
he's
So
he's rubbing his hands together.
yeah,
Got the
yeah, he was
triple one on there. Like
feeling
he's
good.
goddamn world champ. So
Yeah.
yeah, that guy's like consummate professional. He is currently sitting ninth in points, 27 points. He's got a 17-point lead on everybody who rides a Husky. So that's yeah, that's significant, and that's good for him. Like honestly, I'm really happy to see him having some success throughout the early rounds here. Yeah, he like I think he's here for 3 or 4 rounds.
From what I understand, I think this next round's his last one.
Yeah, I think it's just the three, and then
Yep.
he's full prep for his defense of his world championship. Um, Obviously not a night to write home about for Jet Lawrence. Him and his brother kind of swapping positions, eighth, ninth. A little bit of contact between Chase and Jet in the main event there. I like Chase in the press conference is like, "Oh, I wasn't sure who that lapper was." I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, huh? Okay, cool. But I think that was a little bit of gamesmanship there, but it's just good to see. There's to have like I don't wish negatively on anybody. Like these results don't affect me in any way, shape, or form. But I want to see good racing. I want to see good storylines, and to have someone just leap away with a championship and just gone. And like by round five, we're talking about who's going to get second. That's not what needs to happen. And yeah, a little shakeup of the points. And yeah, like just a not the best night in the world for one Jet Lawrence. Like I don't, and you can, I don't think you can really just label this as like, I guess Jet's not a mud rider. Like it's mud. These things happen. Like there's guys who have great races in the mud, terrible races in the mud. Like uh harkening back to 1998 at was it Matterley Basin, absolute mud quagmire. Ricky Carmichael couldn't even make it around the track due to just how muddy it was, how brutal it was. Smash cut to 2006, laps the field in the mud. Like
Yeah.
both
Well,
those
and
days
that's what I was about to
existed,
say.
right?
You said riders can have good ride, you can ride well in mud, cannot ride well in mud, and sometimes it can be that same rider. Sometimes the heat can be absolutely killer, and the main event, everything just goes to hell.
That's
And
right.
so
Right.
it's yeah, it's the great equalizer. It's yet at some point it's not the great equalizer because it's so sporadic. Sometimes it takes people like Shimoda completely out of contention for no reason.
That's right.
And then sometimes, riders that aren't relatively well known come to light and you're like, holy crap, where'd this guy come from? But no, needless to say, I'm very excited to get back to some sunny and 75 weather. I want to see some good racing. I would like to see the points switch up again. I don't wish anything bad on anybody, like you said, but just for the sake of entertainment value for the series. I'd love to see Coop get a good run. He needs to kind of get on the bounce back. He had some tough luck there last night as well. So Coop needs a good one. I want these riders to keep dicing it up. I want the
Yeah.
points to stay tight. I don't want anybody to be out of it, and I don't want anybody to run away with it.
Certainly. No, it's going to be a great championship. It already is. We're only 2 rounds into this. And the best thing about the weekend was Shane McElrath's mustache. It was incredible. It was a handlebar mustache. It came at a complete left field because when you think of Shane, you don't think of silly mustaches, but there it was.
I don't know. Silly's not the word I got, man. He was pulling it off. I'm gonna be honest.
You think
I,
that's just the way that's a life choice?
Dude, I was digging it. It's I mean, he's gone full slick on top,
Yeah, he's
and
Mr. Clean.
I think it takes away from the nice guy Shane look, man. It gives him a little bit.
A
I
little
saw a
snarl.
comparison to him to a Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I'm telling you what, a guy goes on a bulking program. I think he's going to strike some fear in some people. So no, I like to see Shane have a good result, man. Shane is an awesome guy, and
Shane's
I
on the
don't.
gaming program. Like dollars to donuts, both him and Cole Thompson are playing Call of Duty right now.
Maybe, man. I
100%.
I was not a gamer, so I know people that have gamed with like the pros before, like they've
Hmm.
hopped on games with some of the PC guys and stuff like that
Yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everyone's always, oh, you should get MX bikes. I'm like, I'm not 14.
Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I get too mad. I suck at them, and then I just get really mad at an
Yeah,
inanimate object and look stupid. So, no, I'll stick to sucking in real life.
yeah,
But
and you look stupid enough as it is
I was about to
on
say
your
I look
bike.
stupid
So
at the real thing, let alone
yeah, you don't need any
on a
more help. No,
computer.
you don't need any more help.
So
So let's get to some predictions. Let's boil things down and talk about this upcoming round. San Diego, Whales Vagina. Um, we're rolling into this race right here, and I'm excited about it because um like it's a great stadium. It's a football stadium, long lanes. I like the track map. And I think it's going to create some really, really good racing. So let's get straight into it. Let's go 250s, 450s for the prediction on the podium. And we're going to give a random 14th place. I don't know what it is for the RM ATV MC fantasy game or whatever, but I'm choosing 14th. So my podium, getting back to normal with RJ Hampshire. He's going to get back to the top step of the podium. Um, with followed by Levi Kitchen and Smoke and Joe Shimoda rights the ship by getting himself on the podium. It's not going to be a win, but he's going to be third. And then for 14th, give me Cole Thompson. Give me your 250s.
I'm gonna put. I'm gonna say Kitchen up top.
Okay.
I'm gonna put Shimoda. I said he was gonna be on the podium. I'm gonna do him second.
Okay.
And
Solid.
then I'm gonna say Smitty keeps it going, man. I called him for the win and he pulled it off in the mud. So I'm gonna say he throws it back up there for third. And then 14th. Oof, I don't even know. Let's say
14th. Cole Thompson's currently 14th in points. That's not why I picked that, but now I'm happy to see that.
I'm trying to think of some riders around that. Who's 12th and 13th in points?
Shimoda and Phil Nicoletti.
All right. Well, I
Shimoda's on
am
your
gonna
fucking
go.
podium, so
I'm gonna go Julian Beaumer. I'm gonna say he has a bad night.
ooh, wow, throwing shade at Juju.
Hey, I'm not
I don't know how
throwing
I
no
feel about
shade.
that.
No shade.
All right, no shade, no shade. All right, let's go to the 450 class. I think it's going to be a get right weekend for one Ken Roczen. I think Roczen's going to be top step on my podium, followed by an awesome night for Justin Barsha. Rounding out my podium is going to be Chase Sexton, and then for my 14th, give me Justin Cooper.
All right, let me think here. I'm gonna say I'm gonna
Crazy
say
that I'm predicting a factory 450 guy to be 14th, but that's just the world we live in.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Coop bounces back and gets a win.
Whew.
I'm gonna say mm, I'm gonna say Jet Lawrence second, and then Tomac third.
And 14th, just a dart
Mm,
throw.
That's pretty much like I feel bad. Like I'm trying to think of some names that are accurate to put out there.
Just a Norin, Drake, Wilson,
We'll do Drake. I'll do Derek Drake 14th.
Double D, Derek Drake with the 14th place spot. That's right in where he's at for the points anyway this year. So I think he'd be happy with that. Um, and he's out of Lake Elsinore, California. I think he actually is from there. It's not just a mailing address. He's always a California kid. So that's it, guys, for the Vurbmoto Power Hour. This being episode 2. Thank you guys so much for checking out this episode. And now, without further ado, as we're getting ready to go back to the ranch, we got Out at the Ranch with Zach Heron.